Hello, everyone. I'm Isaac, and I would like to talk about decision making. I believe it's a very important topic, it's a very important concept. So, generally, one thing that is common amongst we humans is that we are going to make decisions throughout the rest of our lives. And the quality of those decisions generally is what determines the quality of our lives. You know, independent of our associations with our fellow humans, how we behave and how we communicate with other our relationships and rest, generally the or irregardless of where one starts from, out of life, what where you start. There's a popular Rockefeller quote that says, where you start from in life doesn't determine where you end up in life. And so generally, one's ability to make quality decisions throughout the rest of one's life, it's a great ability. So generally, if you look at what differentiates the most powerful people, the most influential people, the most wealthy people in the world, one common thing that you are gonna notice is the ability to make quality decision. And this is very important because you know if you look at the whole spectrum of decision making, be it short term decision making or long term decision making, when you make a good decision, one thing it does is that the quality of the be it what comes after it, it's usually good, basically. I mean, probably you made a good financial or health decision. Generally you realize that what comes next are always good experiences, and that happened because of the quality of the decision you make. And generally, when you see decision making from an individual standpoint, or a group standpoint, or a country, so when you say a group, be it an organization, a company, a business, whichever the case may be. And if you look at your ability to make decisions across, be it relationship wise, family wise, education wise, work or career wise, relationship wise, basically, your ability to make good decisions in each of these aspects of one's life. Generally, one thing about it is that decision making, when you make a good decision in any aspect, you are going to carry that ability too in other aspects of your life. So generally, just improving one's decision making process, is a very important quality. And why I'm trying to talk about this is because, coming from my background as a chess player, one thing when you talk about strategy and tactics in chess, one of the things that you see that differentiates the best chess players from the worst, the average chess players, is basically just the ability to make good decisions on the board. I know one thing, chess is on the board, but we can draw parallel similarities between chess and life, in the sense that even in life, where we are interacting and engaging with reality, with other human beings, it doesn't still stop the fact that one's ability to also make good decisions in life too is also very, very highly important. So take for instance, you are trying, basically a lot of people ask this question, what's your 5 year goal, what's your 5 year plan, all these things. And basically, when you look at it in the spectrum of long-term decision making or short-term decision making, when you're trying to make a short-term decision, that's you're acting immediately, you're acting now. Maybe there's something to do immediately, you want to do something, maybe you want to get something to eat, that's a decision still. You're trying to decide if you're trying to eat, if you want to eat at that moment in time. And let's see if it's a long-term decision you're trying to make. Maybe the question we were asking earlier on, where do you want to be in 5 years time? And if you look at that spectrum, the first thing is vision, basically, because strategic decision, long-term decision making requires foresight, basically requires vision, especially if the time horizon goes far ahead into the future. Obviously, there is no determinant that that you can basically predict the future and say, okay, this is what's going to happen and it's just going to play out like that. It's not, the probability of that happening is very slim. But there is one thing about positioning and developing one planning, basically, that even as things change, you are able to adapt your plan to the changing circumstances. And for long-term decision making, you have a vision that, okay, this is where you think, this is where you want to get to. Maybe it's a country. This is where we want to get to, an organization. This is what we want to achieve, and but in this time frame, this is what we want to achieve in this specific time frame. So there's the goal and there's the timeline required to achieve that goal. So the question now comes, well, what are the steps that we are going to take to achieve this goal? Okay, that's now planning. And there's a steps to put in place to take on to ensure that, okay, we are going to follow these steps, but as much as it's not just rigid steps, because one thing is that in the real world, circumstances may change. Things you probably didn't opt for, didn't plan to, may happen. And it doesn't mean that the long-term plan is fully compromised. What it just demands is adjustment, being flexible in one's plan towards the long-term goal or the vision that one is trying to achieve. And basically just move towards that. If, for instance, it's an organization, the long-term goal, the long-term vision is directing them. It gives them a clear view of where they are going to. How they may get there may differ, but those steps that they are taking at each point in time, and whatever changes, their ability to be flexible, is one of the major things that differentiates the great countries from mediocre countries, or great individuals from mediocre individuals. And this is one of the beliefs that I strongly have, that it doesn't matter where one starts from, that basically just improving one's ability to make good quality decisions over the time. Like, if you look at it from a numerical point of view, say, okay, from a 0 to 100, on a scale of 0 to 100, how good are you at making decisions across any aspect of life? And if you think about that question, and trying to arrive at an answer on that question, for me, I believe I'm not at a point where that I can say, okay, I obviously have a very good skill in terms of this 0 to 100 I want to get to. I want to be at 70, over 70, making good quality decisions. It's a very hard goal, but obviously I know that I can do this. But generally, if you look at individuals, great countries that have been able to, these are people that over 70, making good quality decisions. But it doesn't mean that they don't make mistakes. But what just separates is that the amount of mistakes they make at that point is few. They don't make big mistakes that leads them into ruin. Because that's one major thing. Your ability to play tomorrow matters a lot. Any big mistake that leads one to ruin, it destroys the ability to play tomorrow. So generally, just improving one's ability to make good quality decisions, it matters a whole lot, because it just keeps on improving you. Even as a country, if you take Nigeria for instance, there's a lot of complaints about Nigeria. We are not where we want to be, obviously. If you look at the whole circumstances, obviously there's still a long road ahead, and there are still great places, or great positions that Nigeria as a country can get to. And if you look at the quality of the decisions that have been taken, first of all, if you say, okay, what's the vision for Nigeria, for instance, if you take that into consideration and you look at, have there been any leader that has laid down a strong vision that, okay, this is where we want to get to in 10 years, in 20 years, and in 5 years. Obviously, the system of government that we are operating doesn't allow one person to stay in power for so long. But instituting such a thing that, okay, it's very strong vision, this is where we want to get to, and these are the steps that we are going to take to get towards that place. Irregardless of all the old problems, when you put in strong systems in place, strong steps to ensure that, okay, you are leading the people that you are taking along as a leader. You show them the path that, okay, this is where I want to, this is how I want to get, how we are going to get there. And you are moving along towards that goal. So quality decision making really matters a whole lot. It really matters a whole lot. This is one thing I'm trying to get very good at doing, because coming from my background as a chess player, you're trying to make decisions at every point in time in the chess, but you're trying to be seriously intentional when you're making those decisions, because the slightest mistake, and you're lost, you're losing position already. And when you look at it about in life too as well, it just tells you that this skill matters a whole lot. This skill, one's ability to make good quality decisions, matters seriously. So yeah, I think I'm gonna do another video on this again, but in the meantime, you could let me know what you think about it. Let me know what you think about decision making, what you think your decision making prowess is, and how you can get better at making good quality decisions, be it short term or long term decisions. All right, take good care of yourself. Bye.